Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. Today is our webinar on list views. So we're going to run through some of those and kind of do a product demo and show you guys everything that Intacct can do in that regard. List views are basically a way to allow you to customize how you display, sort, and filter data in Intacct. So for today's agenda, we're going to do kind of a list views overview, kind of go over some of the permissions that are needed, and then really look at custom list views and enhanced list views, and then we'll top it off by going in and doing a product demonstration. So first up is list views. And so big picture list views are basically just anything in Intacct where it shows you a list of records. So these aren't specific to one application or module or anything like that. So you'll see them, for your vendors, for customers, for GL accounts, AP bills, all that fun stuff. And so the term list view is kind of used across the system, so it doesn't really matter if you're looking at your vendor's list view or your customer's list view. Either way, Intacct still just refers to that as a list view. And not every single one, I don't think, but virtually all of them have about the same functionality in terms of what all you can do in terms of like sorting and filtering and the data that's displayed and all that kind of stuff. So with your normal list views, like I said, each application is going to have kind of some built-in standard list views. So if you look up here in the top left corner, where this says this all dropdown, so that's going to be your standard all list view that you're going to see across multiple different applications in Intacct. And basically all that means is that it's showing you all of the records and based on which checkboxes you select at the top to include one-time use or inactive or stuff like that. This is basically just showing you all of the active records. So with these list views, you can go in here and choose that all drop down and create a new list view from scratch, or you can edit an existing list view and save it as a new one, or just edit it and redeploy it out. And then you can also you have full functionality in terms of like sorting and filtering for all these columns. So as you can see, there's like a little text box above them. You can type into that to search for a specific value, or you can click on the headers to sort alphabetically or reverse alphabetically, anything like that you want. You also have a lot of options in terms of advanced filtering. So if you click on the advanced filters button, it lets you basically set column filters. You can do multiple at a time, makes it a little bit easier to apply those. And then kind of something that's semi-new in Intacct is actually what's called an enhanced list. And so that's what this screenshot is. And so it looks about the same, but a little bit more kind of like a different user interface. And so enhanced lists have been kind of rolled out over the last year and a half or two with Intacct, and they're basically just kind of a more dynamic way to be able to interact with these list views. So with the enhanced list views, you have a few more, sorting and filtering options. Is a little bit easier to bring in columns, to resize columns, all that stuff to make it a little bit more visually appealing for you guys. With both enhanced and custom list views, you do have full export functionalities. So a lot of times clients realize that, once they get into some of these list views, they can actually almost be used as reports. So we do have a lot of clients that oftentimes will create list views and then either export them out as a PDF or to Excel or something like that. And they actually use those kind of in a reporting sense. Alrighty, now we can jump straight into the product demo. Alrighty, so I am here in Intacct, and I'm just gonna move this out of the way real quick. There we go. So I'm here in Intacct on my vendor's list view. So this is kind of just a good starting example of a basic kind of standard list view that they have in the system that kind of shows you a whole bunch of possibilities in terms of sorting and filtering, which you can include, all that fun stuff. So to get here, all you have to do is go to accounts payable and then click on the word vendors, and you'll be right in to your vendors list view. And so from within this standard list view, like I said, right now we're in the all list view. And so this is one that comes standard with Intacct. And so it doesn't matter if you're looking at vendors or if I flip over to bills or to employees like a dimension, I'm still going to see this all button in the top left corner. If you click this drop down, you'll see a few other pre-built list views. So stuff for like recently modified, recently viewed, and then all recently modified. So this can be pretty helpful, especially if you're going through your bills list and you're kind of constantly going back and forth between records, and you just want to see those ones you've really dug into recently. You can come up here and just switch this to recently viewed, and it'll only show you the records that you've recently viewed. And then at any time, if you want to switch back to your normal list view, all you have to do is go back up here and click on all, and then it'll switch you right back to this main all list view. So kind of moving along this top section here, before we get into actual custom list views, first thing I want to do is go over some of these checkboxes. So right now, the only one checked is to display hierarchy. And so basically, this just allows you to see the hierarchy of any sort of records that have a parent-child relationship. So most often, that's going to be with your dimensions, like your locations or classes, or with vendors or something like that. So you won't see this display hierarchy option on the bills list view, for example. So if I flip over to my third tab, actually, to show you the employees, just because this has a good hierarchy view. Basically, what this does is it transforms this list from just a standard list view of everything in alphabetical order to an actual hierarchy list view where it takes into account the employee's manager. So if I uncheck this box, you'll see that the employee IDs are just listed in numeric order, and it's just a single long list view. You can't really tell, if I need to know who Jill Saunders' manager was, I would actually have to go in here and view her record and be able to see that way. So if you come back out here to your list view and you just say display hierarchy, then it kind of adds, like I said, the hierarchical structure to this. So you can a lot easier come in and see, okay, here's Jill Saunders. She is underneath Nicole Farley. Alrighty, so then moving on, so these next two are include one-time use and include inactive, and also kind of include private. I can throw that in there as well. Basically, these three show records that are either, in this case for vendors, one-time use vendors, or inactive vendors, or vendors that are private, meaning that they were set up at the entity level. If you transact fully at top level, which I'm assuming most of you guys on this webinar probably do, then this include private checkbox probably won't really be necessary. So for example, if I check this box, my number of vendors didn't actually change. And so I can see that none of these were created at the entity level, so it doesn't actually really matter. One-time use and inactive, on the other hand, these most of the time will actually pull in more records that aren't showing. So right now, as you can see, I have 33 active vendors. And so if I say I also want to include my inactive vendors, now it moved up to 34. And I can see a column was added for status, and I can see this record for HC equipment repair is currently inactive. Same concept with one-time use. Again, this is just a vendor field, so you won't see this on bills or like employees or other dimensions. But if you want to see your one-time use vendors, you can check that box, and then they will also pop up. And again, this is going to be kind of similar to the status column, but this is just for one-time use, and you can see a checkbox there. Alrighty, so then gonna uncheck my boxes here. So one other option that's, I think it's kind of specific to vendors, but vendors, you can set up vendor groups. And so here in AP settings, if you go to AP and then setup and then vendors and you want to set up a vendor group, you can. And if you do have vendor groups, then you can come in here and you can actually filter your vendors list by those groups. Alrighty, so next thing we're going to get into is some of the filtering and sorting options from your standard list view here. So up here at the top, you have two little hyperlinks here, one for advanced filters and one to clear all filters. So if I click on this advanced filters button, it's going to show me, right now it's just going to show two field options, and then our operator, and then just a blank field value. So basically to use these, all you have to do is come in here, and if I want to say, any vendor that is from the state of, let's see, we'll say state equals TX. So basically all this is doing is filtering my vendor records on the state or territory column. It's only going to return those where the state equals Texas. So if I apply this, then as you can see, all of these records that returned all have this same TX as their state. And then if I want to clear this filter, all I have to do is click clear all filters and it'll take me right back. So a pretty common one that we get with these advanced filters up here is using them to kind of filter for like a date range. And so this is actually pretty common with AP bills, more so than something like vendors. But for example, if I wanted to see all of my AP bills that were entered and posted between April 1st and April 30th, I would go in here to advanced filters and I could say date. And you can either say is greater than or equal to. You just have to remember whether or not that's inclusive of the start date. So I usually just say is greater than or equal to, and then I'll say 04/01 of 2025. And then date is less than or equal to 04/30 of 2025. And so basically this is just telling the system, or telling this list view, I only want to return the bills that are between April 1st and April 30th, inclusive of those dates. So if I click apply, then it's going to show me my 3 bills in here that have been entered, and they all 3 have a April posting date. And then again, if you want to clear these filters, all you got to do is click clear all filters, and you're right back to where you were. You do also, like I said, have the option to search in any of these column names, or you can click on the column headers to sort. So right now this is being sorted numerically by vendor ID. So if I click on this header name, it's just going to reverse that order. And then I can do that across all of these columns. So if I wanted to see total due, the lowest or the highest amount, I can sort by that. And then again, if I just want to go back to my normal list view, I can just back out of here, click my home button, and then go back to AP and vendors. And then now my all list view is back to exactly how it looked and back to my normal sorting. With these columns, with the text box up here that you can filter on, these can filter for, essentially when you type something in here, it's going to search the beginning of this field to see if it can find it. So for example, if I was looking for Boston properties and I typed Boston and hit enter, then it's going to show Boston properties. But if I tried to type properties and hit enter, it's going to come up with nothing. So in order to do a wildcard search, which basically means you're searching this field and you're searching the entire field for any instance of a certain number or certain string of characters. So if I wanted to find just LLP, all you have to do is put a % and then LLP and then hit enter, and then it will return any value that has LLP listed anywhere in the name. With these list views, you can do multiple filters on columns. So for example, if I wanted to include anything that had V in the title, and then I also only wanted to see the state of Texas, I can add multiple filters to this. And then to remove them, all you have to do is backspace them out and hit enter. And you will, and then it'll regenerate the list based on the filters that are still included. Alrighty. So then last thing with these kind of standard list views, and this applies to really to all list views, whether you're using the standard ones, custom or enhanced, but you have this option up here in the top right corner to export these. So like I kind of mentioned earlier, a lot of our clients actually end up using these different list views as actual reports. So sometimes it's really helpful to be able to come in here, and if you just want to see all of your open bills, and then export that list, you can create a custom list view and then export that out to Excel. So the export options are either PDF, Word, or Excel/CSV. So it's entirely up to you how you export these out. Typically, most of our clients, like I said, use Excel or CSV version, but that's entirely up to you guys. Alrighty, let's see. I think that's about all for the standard list views. So now we can get into custom list views. So to create a custom list view, all you have to do is come over here to this Manage Views dropdown, and you can either choose the option Create New View, Save View As, or if I flip over here to an existing custom list view, then you'll see the option to edit as well. So from this existing list view, if I want to edit, the column configuration, how it's sorted, anything like that, I can come in here and just click this edit button. And it'll bring me right into the setup wizard where I can go through here and choose, anything that I need to change, make updates, and then I can click save. To create a new view from scratch, like I said, you can either create a new view from here, or what I really like to do is sometimes I'll flip back to this all tab, or really any of these list views, and I'll go to manage views and then save view as. And so basically this is just saving this all list view, and then we're going to rename it to test vendor list view 1, and I can click save. And so now this allows me, so from this all list view, I don't have the option to edit this, but now if I duplicate that and save it as a new list view, then I can go in here and edit this. And if I want to add just one extra column for, say, the tax ID, I can check that box for tax ID here in step 1, and then I can save this. And then it's just like my all list view, but I've added the tax ID column. So going into the setup wizard, so the custom list view setup wizard is pretty kind of self-intuitive in my opinion. It's got a lot of steps and it can kind of be overwhelming with these, especially here at the beginning, with just the sheer number of fields you can choose. But this kind of changes for each record that you're trying to look into. So for example, if I flip over to like the employees list view, and I create a new view, as you can see, there are significantly fewer fields to choose from. The vendors list view tends to be the most cumbersome just because of all the related contacts and different information like that. So here on this first screen, this first step, this is basically where you're just selecting the columns that you want to include in your list view. So these are basically going to correlate one-to-one with any fields or custom fields that you have on the object. So this view is for the vendor object. And so as you can see, like down here, this Sage 100 vendor ID, this is a custom field that we have on our vendors. So none of you guys would probably see this field, but you guys would see your own custom fields within the vendor object. So as you kind of select these, as you kind of get used to, creating custom list views and more familiar with how they work and all that stuff, you'll become a little bit better at kind of recognizing which fields of these need to be used versus which ones maybe look like the correct one, but you don't actually need it, stuff like that. So kind of just take some practice and playing around. But one thing I will say is up here, you have the option to select all and deselect all. It might seem like a good idea to come in here and say select all and then just try to save this list view and pick and choose which columns you need. But once you start adding anything more than about 20 columns or so, in my experience, the system can get a little bit slow and laggy with that. So just be something to watch out for and be careful with. I'm going to cancel out of this real quick and then go back in here to edit again. So once you've selected the columns that you want to include in your list view, then you can click this next button. So step 2 is where you can select the column sequence and you can rename the column titles. So this is basically just telling, Intacct which order you want these to be displayed in. So if I wanted to see, vendor ID, vendor name, and then their tax ID and their type ID, all I have to do is drag and drop these up and down, and you can drag them to whichever order you want. And then if you want to rename how the column appears like in the user interface, all you have to do is come in here and overwrite this. So if I wanted this to say federal ID instead, I can change that. So then if I click next thing will be your options for filtering. And so with these filters, these are built into this list view. So no matter what, they're always going to be applied. So there's not really a way to go in and you can't say clear all filters from your list view and expect it to clear the ones that are hard coded into this custom view. So just be sure that, if you are filtering within the view itself, that you're 100% sure that you always want the list view to be filtered that way. So some common things that people tend to filter on, like within the list view itself, might be like in your AP bills, if you want to see anything that has an amount due that's greater than 0. That way you would always be filtering to only show open AP bills. Let's see. So, sorry, with this, you can choose any of the columns in here that are available for selection within the list view itself, and then you have your full list of operators, and then you can set a value. So next, this is when you can sort your different columns and sort the results that display. And so you can choose individual columns, how they're sorted, either none, ascending, or descending. And then you can drag and drop each field overall just to determine a priority. So if you wanted to, first sort by total due and see the highest total due amounts first, and then for any others, you just want to see them, vendor ID ascending, you could set it like this, or if you want to switch that, the priority of these filters, you can just drag and drop those. And last step is to name your list view, and you have an option to deploy it and give it a description. So because I created my list view from an existing one, I already had to name it and save it, so I can no longer edit this or change this name. But if you start from scratch, you will have to enter a name here before you can save the list view. So this deploy checkbox, so basically this allows you to deploy the list view across the system for everyone to use. So I typically like to tell clients that if they're creating a list view that should be used for everyone, so something super generic like all your open AP bills or a certain vendor list view that you guys have filtered that everybody in the company uses, that's when I would check this deploy box. But if you're creating a list view that's just for yourself, that you're the only one who's going to be using it, I would not check that box just because it'll add this list view to the list of custom views. And so it just kind of crowds up that little drop down screen. So just something to be careful with, but can be useful if you guys need to. And the description is completely optional. But again, if you guys have some advanced filtering or anything like that, it never hurts to add a description just so that you don't have to go through and individually check, all the steps of the setup process just to figure out what the list view is showing you. So once you have everything set up in here and you want to go ahead and save this and make it available, all you have to do is click this save button, and then it'll pop you right back out to your vendor's list view again, and it'll automatically be showing you this custom view. So again, if I want to come in here and edit this, all I have to do is click this manage views drop down and then click the edit button. And then I can always come back in here and I can add, if I need to add more fields, I can. If I need to remove fields, if I want to change any of my, column sequence, filters, sorting, anything like that, all I have to do is come in here and make those updates, and then I can click save, and they will immediately take effect. So one other thing with standard or custom list views is how to delete them. So if you make a custom list view and you decide you no longer need it or want it and it's not used and it's just taking up too much space and you just don't want to see it again, you have to, well, first off, you actually do have to be a business user to be able to do this. And I think you have to have admin privileges as well. But you can come in here to platform services, and then here under object customization, you can see custom views. And so if I click on that, this is going to show me all of my custom views across the entire system, the name of them, the root object name, and then gives you options to edit or delete these. So let's see, where is, here it is. So I just created this test vendor list view 1. So if I wanted to delete this, I just click the delete button and then OK. And then if I go back to AP and my vendors list, then well, right now it's set to nothing selected because that was my last view that I tried to do, but you can see it is no longer included down here. So I just need to flip back over to the all list view. Alrighty, a couple other things. So next thing I want to get into is enhanced lists. And so with enhanced lists, this is one of those things that I kind of touched on a little earlier, said it was kind of like a newer functionality in Intacct. And this is something that they seem to be adding to with all the quarterly releases and kind of expanding more and making it more and more useful. So I personally am a huge fan of the enhanced list views. So basically just going to show you guys what all they're capable of. So here from my normal AP list view, you'll see this option up here for turn on enhanced list. So if I click that, it's going to refresh my screen. and it's going to come up with this new kind of user interface. Let's see, I'm trying to see. Not all of the list views. Okay, here we go. So like employees, for example, the employees list view doesn't have this option yet. So as you can see, there's no option to turn on the enhanced list up here. So some of the list views within Intacct do have this functionality, some don't. Like I mentioned, they're rolling it out to more and more objects as we speak. So if they're not available yet, just keep an eye out for it. So basically, once you turn on enhanced list view, that's essentially all you have to do to be able to, use it and take advantage of all the functionality. If you decide that you don't like it at any time, all you have to do is just click off this turn off enhanced list button, and it'll take you right back out to your normal vendors list view. One thing to keep an eye on with this is depending on how many records you have, sometimes the enhanced list can take a minute to load. So if you have in the thousands of vendors and you try to turn on your enhanced list, it might take a little bit longer than normal. But typically in my experience, once it does load, then it seems to function fine. So it's just kind of that initial page load. So here in enhanced lists, these are basically going to function, same general concept as your normal list views. They basically have just taken the user interface and added a bunch of different things to make it easier to get the data, sort the data, pull in different fields, and all that kind of stuff on the user end. So first thing I mentioned was that the user interface changes a little bit when you switch this on. And so some of the advantages to that are that with this this vendors table that I'm looking at right now in this enhanced list view, I can resize these columns. So for example, this address line 1, it's kind of being cut off here. So if I wanted to resize this, I can just drag and drop that, and it'll resize that column to fit the entire way across if I want to. Also beyond that, they have a little settings icon. So if I click on that, then it allows me to choose whether I want to sort this ascending, descending, if I want to freeze this column, or if I want to enable text wrapping. So if I make this column a little bit more narrow to where some stuff would be kind of getting cut off here, then I can come in here and say settings and text wrap and just wrap this. And let's see, I'll have to make it a little smaller. There we go. So here on this example, like this 12770 Meridian Avenue, as you can see, the wrap text applied, and now I'm able to see that entire row without having to readjust this column width. Let's see. And so again, like I said, if I want to freeze a column, that will kind of keep it here and make it not move. And so this works for side-to-side scrolling. So, if I come in here and I want to add some new columns to this, which I'm just going to check a few just to make sure that we get enough on here. And so now, now that I have side-to-side scrolling, you can see that this vendor ID column will stay frozen. And so I can scroll across here and not lose visibility as to what the vendor ID is. Let's see. So also within each of these columns, so you can see right here, this little filter button or this filter icon is kind of filled in dark, whereas the rest of these columns are, they're empty. And so basically this just means that this column has an active filter, and in this case, it's filtering for a status of active. And so if you want to, you can choose this drop down and you can say, I actually want to see the ones that are active non-posted, which in this case is none. So I'll just switch it to inactive. And so now it's going to just show me my one inactive vendor. You can also click this little X button. I don't know if you guys saw that, but if you choose active, oops, and if I could get this to spread out, there we go. So there's this little X button. So if you want to unapply a filter, all you have to do is click that little X, and then that will remove it from that column, and it'll refresh the screen. So these can also be typed directly into. So if I wanted to say state equals Texas and then just hit enter, I can. And then it'll filter my list for all my vendors where the state equals Texas. And then also with these, I think you guys probably saw me do this just a second ago. But if I want to drag and drop these into a different order, so if, for instance, if I wanted to see total due way closer to the front of this list view, I can just drag this over and then drop it, and it'll automatically move that right on over. So if I want to switch back to just the standard kind of what the all list view was before I started making edits, I can go over here and click revert changes, and then it'll just zip me right back over to my normal all list view. And then again, not sure if you guys noticed this one, but if I drag and drop this, so if I make a change to this list view, this all up here in this top left corner, it goes from all without an asterisk to now it says all with an asterisk. So basically it's just saying you're using the all list view, but you've made a change to it. And so that's how you kind of know if you're still using your pre-built custom list view, or if you just want to go back to the one that Intacct provides. So with these enhanced lists, you still have full functionality in terms of creating list views, like custom list views for yourself. So if I wanted to go in here and click new, then it's going to take me to a slightly different, but still same basic kind of setup options. So as you can see here, you still have like a general tab where you're going to name your view, select your columns, be able to choose, filtering, freezing options, all that kind of stuff. And so, like I said, this UI is just a little bit different, but it's the same basic concept as going through this normal setup wizard. I typically don't usually create an entire new view with enhanced views. I think it's easier to just, take the existing one, and then I can come in here and add, any filters I need. I can configure the columns, all that stuff. And then if I end up liking it, I can just save the view. Or if I don't end up liking it, all I have to do is revert it back to the normal all list view. Let's see. So like I said, here's your filter options. So if you click on the filters button right now, it's filtering for two things, just looking to see if the status is active and if one-time use equals false. So within this is basically how you can also say this include entity records. This is the same thing as saying include private. And so then once you check that, you have the option to see which entity that transaction belongs to, or that record belongs to. Then again, you can obviously filter through here. So, right now you've got your field, operator, and value. One nice thing about the enhanced list view is that you can actually change this from being and, so like multiple filters on top of each other, to you could say or. So if you want to see the status is either active or one-time use, then you could switch that to true and then click apply. And then it's going to show you all your active or one-time use vendors. Let's see. So if I click over here on this little gear icon, so this is how I can actually bring columns in to this list view. So if I go to right here on configure columns, then right here it's going to show me my list of basically all the columns that are available to select on this object. Again, I personally like this user interface a lot better just because it kind of organizes these fields a little bit better. Kind of shows you, if it's a connected object or something like that. And then you can also just come over here and only see the ones that are selected. So you don't have to see, the entire list of 9,000 field options and try to figure out which ones you have selected. You can just switch over here to that. So to add a new column to this, it's super easy. All you have to do is check the box for whichever field you want to add. So let's see. If I wanted to add the 1099 information, all I'd have to do is come in here and I can check these three boxes, and then I'm going to click apply. And so now my list view is going to reload. And as you can see, now I've got my three 1099 columns here. And I can move these, like I said, I can type in here to say contains. So if I only want to see the ones that are set to NEC, I can do so. Oh, is that not going to work now? There we go, equals NEC, and so apply. And I think all of these columns default to searching for contains. So that's actually kind of nice because I know a lot of people come from their legacy software and they're used to being able to just type in, to like an address line and just be able to search Warren and not have to do anything special. So yeah, it's kind of convenient that you have the option to go from contains to, if I want to back this out and filter it, oops, Well, no, it's getting a little bit laggy on me. All right, anyways, so yeah, so that's kind of how you create, a custom list view within the enhanced list. And so again, like I said, you can still go in here and edit or change these as you need. And then if you need to revert the changes, you can. So one other thing I wanted to show you within these list views, and I'm actually going to flip over here to my AP bills. So one really neat function is this split view option. So if right now it's on the normal list view, so that means it's just going to show me my records. So if I click here on split view, then it actually allows me to see both a list of my bills, but then I can also see individual records over here on the right side. And I can do all the functionality that you normally would if you're viewing a record. So you can edit, post, print, pay, all that fun stuff without having to actually close out of this list view. So if I wanted to come over here and just see, this invoice, then it's going to pop up in here. And then if I need to go in here and edit this, and let's just say I wanted to update my location, bump this to 200, and then I can post this all without ever having to officially leave this list view screen. And so to get out of this, all you have to do is click this little list view button, and then you'll flip right back over to your normal list view. Let's see. I don't believe there's anything else. So that is going to be all we have for now. Like I mentioned, Intacct likes to, periodically each quarter when they send out their updates, a lot of them have been updating these list view fields, especially these enhanced list fields. So they're getting pretty good about being able to bring in, related objects, stuff that you wouldn't typically think of when you're, setting up a normal list view in Intacct. So definitely worth exploring and playing with. And yeah, if you guys have any questions on anything we've gone over today, feel free to let us know.